with a wonderful person here. Will Tarun Ghulati be the next mayor of London? Is a question we are going to try and answer in today's program. Elections are next week, by the way, the 2nd of May. Now, in a question like I said, it's a question that needs to be answered in today's program. As more than 7 million Londoners go to the polls on the 2nd of May next week, as I said, there are more than 7 candidates challenging for one of the most difficult jobs in the United Kingdom. Mark that, one of the most difficult jobs in the United Kingdom. The key to winning will be depending on the policies that Londoners feel are there in their best interest. Which candidate has the best policies in their best interest? So what are the policies that Tarun Ghulati got that will push him through to one of the most difficult jobs in London, as I said, in the world? He's here to tell us all about it. So be very attentive, and when you go to vote next week, you know exactly what you're voting for. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's a pleasure to be back here again.
Okay, I know. Policies, as I said, what is in your manifesto? That's one of the things.
Well, firstly, I would like to tell your viewers, as an independent, I'm often asked this question: can an independent become the next mayor of London?
It's very possible.
Well, certainly I will. I'll be the next mayor, because you don't have to be voting for a particular party and look for the best candidate. A lot of people tell me, and I certainly believe I should be in that job because of my experience that I bring to the table, my policies, as you just mentioned. And indeed, there are certain things that I do globally, and I can bring that experience to
the table. The key thing has already been Susan Hall, the Tory candidate, unveiled her policies less than 2-3 days ago.
Yes, she
and
did.
There's quite a lot in there. And in contrast to what she's trying to say, some of the things I remember when I sat down here with you a couple of weeks ago, some of the things follow exactly the same pattern, like, get rid of arrests, get rid of that, put more money into policing. They all come up. Now, what exactly have you got yourself in terms of manifesto that, as I said, policies, people are going to look at that, and I said, I think he has a very good manifesto. What is in your manifesto?
That's an excellent question. Firstly, you mentioned Susan Hall. She is a GLA member. And was also the leader of the opposition. And believe me, she should have stopped some of the disaster policies that we currently talk of in London. So she hasn't done a job for the last 7 years. And so she is pretty much uninspiring. And incompetent, I'll say, if she was not able to stop some of these policies. What gives her a chance when she's the next mayor? So talking about that, coming about policies for me. My policies are thinking of the people, and they're designed such that all the communities across the boroughs benefit. The idea is that when you are the mayor of London, you're responsible for 9.6 million individuals plus that live in London. And 2.2 million of them are living in poverty. 33% are children. Now that, I think, the current mayor had a moral responsibility for, but they've been forgotten. So the policies are looking at London as a whole, the communities as a whole, and I looked at, firstly, for me, safety is paramount, and London feels unsafe for most people. Security and safety is at its lowest ebb today. 1,000 murders have been committed since Mr. Khan took over office. 21 teenagers lost their lives last year, 18 to knife crime. So I've decided that firstly, you need to have police stations reopened. because they've shut down some 36 police stations.
Yeah. It was in today's papers.
Yes,
as well,
I need to reopen those police stations. But police stations can be, a police station in a particular borough may not be sufficient.
Yeah.
I will also open police booths so that the distance between a police station and the other police station is narrowed.
Okay.
Right? So you have some policemen to go to and seek help when you need it most.
Yeah.
Now, I want to make sure I have safety ideas projected for all genders.
Okay.
Particularly women. So you create specific cells, creative cells that segment the type of crime, and you bring in specialists so that crime is tackled on a holistic basis.
Okay.
Then you also make sure when you hire more policemen, you hire the right sort of people. So I want to review compensation. So when you review compensation, you hire the best talent.
Yeah.
And then I want to have a league table for policemen.
A league table?
League table. Now, if you're, in the world of business where I come from, if you're not performing, guess what happens?
Yeah.
You're not responsible enough, so you're shown the door.
Yeah.
I want to make sure policemen are accountable for what they've hired for. So there needs to be a preventive situation that they're tackling, but also solution finding. So they got to bring down crime.
Right.
So I want to measure them on a league table.
Okay.
And then at the same time, crime, Susan Hall is talking of certain things, but that's patchy. Crime is not something that you tackle without, or Mr. Khan, where crime has risen. You got to look at it on a holistic basis.
Yes. Yeah.
Find the root cause of crime. And to find that, you actually now start looking at why is it happening that the youth are behaving a certain way.
Now, there's something here which both of you are in agreement. Something to do with the raising or reducing the speed, raise which had started by Sadiq Khan, obviously, and 160 million pounds, 160.8 million pounds was raised, and 32 million pounds was raised in fines and penalties. This money has gone all around and helped in other boroughs. Now, when you we raise and put it out of the way.
You're talking about raising money from fines from people who are driving because of ULEZ or whatever?
Because of ULEZ, yeah. The money that was raised, 160 million, 0.8, that's million pound.
Yes.
That is in last year alone.
Yes.
And then 32 million in fines and penalties.
Yes.
They say that money has done quite a lot in terms of, say, for example, acquiring green spaces that are required, helping with others as far as the roads are concerned. There are so many potholes now. A lot of things are being fixed, and boroughs have gained something from that amount of money because they were listing down. Sadiq Khan was listing down. That was a money-making scheme. On one hand, anyway, it was a money-making scheme and has raised a lot of money. And some people have been put back onto the trains and so on because they don't want to be wasting their money paying.
But this is really
what I'm saying is that you and Susan are thinking in terms of raising it, and that money will be lost.
Yes.
You get the point. That money would be lost.
Yes.
Where are you going to make a money-making scheme as this one?
Well, firstly, let me clarify. I'm not only thinking of getting rid of ULEZ, the expansion part of it.
Okay.
I'm talking of getting rid of ULEZ in totality.
In totality, not to expand it at all?
No. It's a disaster of a policy. We are living in a cost of living crisis.
Okay.
People are wondering whether to heat or to eat. Now with ULEZ, you mentioned fines, some 132 million. Actually, I believe the number is a little higher. But that's not the point here. People are being penalized for something that they shouldn't be. Now, when you're driving into London and you're a carer or somebody on low or moderate income, and you're paying £12.50, that's a lot of money. And I believe that sort of a policy which was designed to say that, look, this is going to clean up the air. That's not cleaning up the air. As you correctly pointed, filling up some coffers. That's not the way to treat citizens. The freedom of movement is as important as the freedom of speech. And in my opinion, this policy is a disaster. I'm going to abolish it totally. Right? Now, you might argue that how is this then there is no conclusive evidence at all that this is going to clean up the air. And talking of transportation,
not just cleaning up the air, a TLC, London Transport, Transport for London, they're having problems. Each year there are strikes taking place, and they're having problems. If you look at the trains, they need regeneration. They need a lot of money to be put in there so that we have better trains,
of course,
and we improve on the services which is provided by London Transport. But the key point keeps coming back. They don't have enough money. So in a way, if this money goes to London Transport as well, as they said, it went to London Transport, part of it, then it's a good thing, isn't it?
Well, Mr. Khan has been behaving like an intern. He's had one term, first term. Then he had a second term. He's been in office for 8 years, and he wants a third term. He has set Londoners back by 8 years, believe me. It's not the budget. The budget of the mayor is 21 billion sterling, right?
All right.
Over the last 2 terms that he's been in office, 140 billion plus has been expended, the budget. Now, I'm not only going to look at transportation patchwork sort of leadership as Mr. Khan is running. I'm going to also look at the 20-mile-per-hour limit. This has got to become history.
All right.
There are low traffic neighborhoods. I'll review with councils with a view to abolishing them again. Right? And congestion charge over weekends and holidays needs to go.
Oh, really?
Right? And for the disabled, I want better access. They need to have better access on public transportation. And the Freedom Pass and the 60+ pass during peak hours needs to be reinstated.
Oh, really?
Yes, of course. And I'm also going to look at discounts for students. What am I trying to say here? Transportation means people need to move around. And you will be surprised, London is the most congested city in the world. It's also the slowest city in the world. So what is happening is people are moving around 156 hours. Each driver on an average is spending in congestion. That is also,
That's in a month or in a year?
No, in the year.
In the year.
So what does means is that when you're moving around in congestion, that is what is polluting the air. And that is also impacting and costing each driver roughly about 1,375 pounds. Now just imagine what that does to somebody who's moving around congestion. It impacts your mental health, impacts your health. That is what is causing the congestion. There are roadblocks here, roadworks somewhere else. People are tired. It's as if the freedom of movement has been stalled. London has come to its knees now. And it needs to be moving again. That will improve the congestion, that will improve the air. So this ULEZ, which you keep mentioning, has to go.
Housing and immigration, those are 2 issues that
major issues
that Sadiq Khan has tried to tackle. Because when we talk about housing, the key thing here now is the money that is being given to London is not enough. And even Susan said so, and other candidates have said so. The money is given to London as a capital, and for spending in the 32 London boroughs is not enough. Because it's not enough, they have to find ways. Because if they increase taxes, that's again something not very good. Because as you're saying, people don't really have enough money to spend. They don't even earn enough. There is unemployment. There is youth unemployment here. There is quite a lot which is going on at the moment. Now, these issues need to be tackled.
Of course they need to be tackled.
And if they got to be tackled, there has to be, money has to come in. There has to be a way in which you can raise money. Now, if you cut off your raise, then there has to be another money-making scheme that will help top up the money that comes from the government. Which scheme is that? What have you got in mind?
Firstly, let me answer what Mr. Khan has done. He's not built enough housing here.
Okay.
And what that is doing is, if you're not living in a place which you can call a home and home. Not enough has been invested in social housing, which means people are not happy. Their engagement becomes less, youth become dissatisfied, and there's a lot of gentrification taking place in different communities. So just imagine the rent goes up, you can't afford to live in a certain area, you got to move out of that area. What does that do to the family? The family becomes disengaged, divided, insular. Mr. Khan should have built more houses, thought of the people. He hasn't done that. And listen,
money.
I'm coming to that.
He doesn't have the money.
No. He has not. He had the money. He didn't start these projects. The money goes back. You know, it's not as if the government puts money into a particular bank and says, let's open and let's build so many houses, and if you don't do this, a budget is set aside, then the money is coming. If you don't expend that budget,
it goes back to the government.
It's incompetence there. And where it comes to Ms. Susan Hall, you mentioned her name. What knowledge does she have on housing? Now I'm coming to the money part of it. So firstly, there's a budget that has already been approved. We utilize that. Secondly, I will create impact sustainability funds. I've been a CEO of India's largest asset management company globally. Look, so and I've been a chairman of a bank, so I know where to get money from. When we talk of councils, you mentioned councils don't have money, but they have an asset in terms of brownfield land. I'm going to bring in monies from outside, utilize that asset so that we can create affordable housing. We're going to bring in reforms for land use because planning has to go on, right? We're going to create community land projects and trusts. What does that mean? So you come from a certain community, you can utilize and build housing there. So the community doesn't get divided, so you don't move around. That is what is the bane in London today. You also give incentives to developers. So when you bring in new development, a certain percentage has to be in affordable housing. Right? And you make sure once you bring the councils in, you have people involved in the process, not like a top-down approach. So that you build housing because different communities have a certain style of living. You can't have a one-size-fit-all. So firstly, there's a budget set aside. Mr. Khan has promised he's going to build certain homes. As I said, he's behaved like an intern. He needs a third term. But what am I trying to say here? He hasn't built those homes. I'll build those homes. I'll bring in city planning experts. There are housing experts. Those advisors will make sure we do the best for all the communities across boroughs. So there'll be sufficient housing. Because that is when the communities will keep smiling. I want to bring back the smiles for everyone, which has been lost, as we can see in London today.
Now, as an independent candidate, there is quite a lot that the major parties, Labour Party, to be precise, and the Conservative Party, they're massive parties. And obviously, the members of Parliament in London and you know, the various groups in London, but mainly the major parties, they always want to put their policies ahead. And obviously, Sadiq Khan has seen this, and the former mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, when he left the Labour Party and he became independent, he had a problem even with the former party, Labour Party, and other parties. The policies were being pushed forward. And I remember reading an article when he was talking about the problems he had. These same problems you're going to face because these parties come in to push forward with their agendas, and you have to either pick a side or remain independent in a way, but the agendas would dictate who you meet and what you do and what you do. You're going to have that problem.
I will have no such problem.
Once you're in office,
These politicians have blurred the vision for London. They've forgotten it should be all about the people. They've forgotten that. They also forget this is a democracy. Individuals elect them. 160 years ago, roughly, the greatest of American presidents said, of the people, by the people, for the people. These politicians have forgotten that individuals like you and me elect them, and then we pay our taxes.
Yeah.
We pay our taxes, which goes into a common purse. That common purse should be utilized. It's a scarce resource.
I know.
Effectively, efficiently, and diligently to provide us with what? The basic necessities, security, housing, freedom of movement, good transport system, schooling, social service. Have they given it all? You've highlighted a catalog of failures.
Of course,
and these failures, it's election year, and these politicians should be aware, if they go around London, as I've been going around the boroughs, they should actually be going around and listen to the people, and action should be taken to understand they have failed the people. Actually, Londoners are tired of political parties. Right? They don't want these politicians anymore. As I said, I've been asked by people, can an independent become the next mayor? And most certainly, because the individuals want to support somebody who works for the people. They're tired of these politicians.
You've been a banker.
Yes.
And you're a banker, investment banker.
Yes.
And you've been at the highest...
chairman of a bank, I've run
HSB
global entities.
And all that.
Yes.
And you've seen the politicians,
yes.
You've seen the cooperative bodies, and you've seen all that. All these people push their agendas as life goes on.
Of course they do.
Push their agendas.
Yes.
For wanting this, for wanting contracts, for wanting that, for wanting that. What is the most difficult situation you have ever come across? When
many. When I'm dealing with governments. When you, even internally, when I used to run operations for HSBC internationally for 14 countries out of Hong Kong. You're dealing with people sitting in a different country, they push their agendas even within the bank. And you got to learn to say no. You take tough decisions. And that's what I'm all about. I'm all for the people.
Can that work towards your downfall if you're dealing with powerful people?
Yes.
Who, for example, are top of their league somewhere, and they said, we're going to work for your downfall. So many people have had this kind of
well, you can see, I'm here today, sitting at the top of the table. I'm a candidate. There are lots of people who probably play politics. But listen, when you work for the people, you mean well for the people. You take people along. When you and I are sitting in an aircraft and it's sitting on the runway, a lot of factors come into play.
Of course,
right?
Of course,
But when the plane takes off, that's how I want to see London taking off, taking all the people together and the plane soaring right high.
Something about experience.
Yes.
Who have you got on board as part? You have your personal experience.
Of course.
But have you got a team of experienced people? Because it's one thing, you being an experienced person. But having somebody who is not experienced on your team. Now, Londoners watching us, wanting to vote for you, will think, okay, he sounds like a very honest man, and I'm going to go for it. But who is behind him?
Well, lots of people. Firstly, that's a great question.
Experienced people. That's not. You may have a lot of people, but they might not be experienced, who have never worked in major. I mean, we are talking about London. We are looking at a budget of nearly 18 to 20 billion a year. And you're looking at a population of which is coming up to nearly 15 to 20 million people in the city. And you need somebody who has worked on a team that handles people and who has probably had a better human resources, who have led human resources in such a way that, you know, at the end of the day, because you're not going to be no,
I'm not the expert at everything. No, certainly. We're going to get the best team.
How are you going to get? Who is among your team for somebody to support you now? He wants to know: is Steve Mulindwa behind your team?
No. Steve Mulindwa certainly behind. He's an important man. No. Let me explain this.
Can you name some of the people behind?
Certainly. If you look at people who are endorsing me today, it includes the former vice chair of KPMG. We will bring in city planning experts. We will bring in transportation experts. We will bring in security experts. These experts are people who do things for a living. Just for your information, there's no other candidate who deals with law enforcement today. I'm a strategic advisor to the Global Cyber Alliance, which means I deal with law enforcement and policing, discuss with them globally.
Yeah, but
so I understand. So I'll bring in the experts.
Okay.
Within the UK, there are experts who do things better than me in all these aspects.
Yeah.
And we're going to bring in those experts.
So you can't, for example, at these final stages, at this final hurdle, say that, listen, because we saw this with Boris Johnson when he was mayor of London, when he became mayor of London. Even beforehand, he had a list of names.
I have a shadow cabinet ready. I have a shadow cabinet ready.
Shadow cabinet.
So if that's what you're asking,
I
have a list of individuals.
Okay.
I mentioned the vice chair of KPMG. Okay. There will be a hospitality czar to make sure that the nightlife in London, the restaurants, which are shutting down today, particularly from the Bangladeshi community and others, I bring in experts from there. There'll be advisors from different communities.
Okay.
So yes, there is a shadow cabinet ready to be announced to make sure we hit the ground running.
Okay.
There's no time to be wasted here. There's a job to be done here. So there's a shadow cabinet ready.
Okay.
Of experts, I mentioned city planning experts, transportation experts, security experts, community experts, advisors from different communities. You can't have a one-size-fit-all. There are over 270 diaspora from different nations that call London home.
Okay.
Over 300 languages are spoken here. So those people, large communities, need to be represented.
Okay.
So I've been speaking with people, I deal with them. For instance, I'm a friend of Africa, you know. So I've got advisors from the African community, already identified. Already identified, so that the larger communities have a say. I want to make sure that we have the problems from a community understood by the people who deal with them on a daily basis. And that's critical for me. What the politicians have been lacking is they've been divisive. They haven't thought of this sort of process. None of them have lived in the countries outside of UK, most of them. I've lived all over the world, so I understand cultural nuances here.
There is something called political correctness.
Yes.
And it's really affecting not just the British society, but the Americans and other parts of Europe, which is, I mean, something that would have been quite straightforward. Obviously, you know about the war between Israel and the Palestinians, the Gaza. You've seen the demonstrations in London, which are on a daily occasions. They are happening on a daily basis. And you've seen the policeman, one of the top policemen, trying to, you know, he was being politically correct when he was telling a Jewish man not to cross because he thought there might be more, he might cause more problem. Do you see this as some kind of, I mean, he was within his right. I just need your opinion on this. There is something going on between the political correctness and the truth of how London should be policed in a way.
Yes.
What is your opinion on this?
That's a great question. Political correctness is very important, but we must understand what is happening on the ground today. Geopolitically, the world is at an inflection point. And I hinted at the communities being broken, but the war in Gaza, I've been the strongest voice of anybody I know in the world. I strongly believe this has to stop totally. I'm not interested in a temporary ceasefire, permanent ceasefire. This is genocide, this is carnage. This has to stop. Now what is happening is, Gaza is important to lots of people in London and outside of London. When they find that nothing is being done about it, and the politicians have been dithering, I mean, even look at the supply of arms. Even supplying arms there. When the politicians dither and they sway like the wind, the wind can blow. So there has to be a solution, that is stoppage of this war. And that is why you refer to political correctness. Sometimes tempers can flare. Sometimes the patience can run thin. So unless you put a stop to something like this, for me, as a mayor of London, as a mayor of London, I want to bring harmony. I want to make sure all the communities thrive. They work hand in hand. I bring peace here. That's what I want. and I'm here for all Londoners, depending on whichever. It doesn't matter to me where they come from.
Okay.
And that is why this sort of a thing which the politicians keep playing around has to stop. Has to stop totally.
Yeah.
And so political correctness, people by and large understand what's going on.
Yeah, of course,
and
of course they do. No, but what I'm saying is that when it comes to that, it's a question of, for example, like I said, what would this police chief would have said? He feared, for example, if this Jewish man had crossed the road and he gets attacked and beaten up,
yes,
they would have blamed him. They would have blamed the policeman, say, look, you let this man go, and then something happened to him. But when he talked to him to be away from the demonstrators, so that in case anything goes, because he was worried about what might happen. But now he's being asked, he has apologized, he has done this, and in other words, what I'm saying, people like us who are looking at it, we've seen the film, we've seen, and we're thinking, okay, he may have talked to him, but it's like a policeman just telling you that, listen, I'm afraid about this, but I'm not saying you're committing a crime, but all I'm saying, you shouldn't do this. And that is what I'm trying to say, that maybe we should create a police force that needs to be taught the virtues of reality. There are certain things which are straightforward.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
If you recall, a few moments ago I was talking about hiring more policemen, but also reviewing compensation.
Okay.
You want to bring in people with the right sort of talent, right sort of training, right sort of mindset, and making sure that they understand communities and different nuances of culture. When you do that, you will you will understand these things will not happen.
Yeah, of course.
Ultimately, the policeman is also a human being.
Of course,
right?
Disease,
and they're also guided by politicians. Sometimes what the politicians might say or may not say.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that element of confusion which I'm talking about will go away with the right sort of politics, and that's why you don't need a politician in London.
Yeah.
You want to make sure somebody like me, who's the next mayor of London on 2nd May, takes all the communities along. Ensures there's the right sort of policing.
There is a lot which we talk about a much broader picture: knife crime, housing, and so on. And there is a lady asked me to ask you this: school dinners.
Yes.
Yeah, is a major issue, which obviously, as the mayor of London was putting out.
Are you talking about lunch, school lunch?
School lunch, school lunch.
Yeah.
It has been a major issue within the schools, and hiring more nannies to look after the children. Aftercare, daycare centers were closed, so many of them. The most boroughs don't have money, so the structure is such that mothers who want to go back to work are having it difficult, because obviously there are no centers. It's very expensive to have a baby now, and by the time you take him in care or something like that to go and get a job, it becomes extremely difficult, and most women are facing this difficult. They have been running to the mayor. There's very little that the mayor can do in regards to the schools. And after school, what we are discussing it even here a week ago with one of the school teachers, after school invent programs where they are no longer there because the boroughs don't have money. Now, as a mayor of London, look at this from the women's point of view, from the children's point of view, after schools. I mean, this is now connected to the school. Even food at school is becoming too expensive that some schools can't even afford to give children food. Again, it all comes back to the mayor.
I beg to differ.
What are you going to do when it comes to schools?
Well, firstly, the current mayor thinks he's doing school children a favor.
But there is a lot of money he put in schools.
I would rather he didn't put in money in fireworks over the New Year's. I would rather he didn't put in money into renaming certain lines and thought of the school children that he wasn't doing them a favor. That school meal will be provided by me 110%. And unlike the Conservative candidate who thinks, oh, I am promising free school meals, this is nothing to do with the promise. This is something we must do. We are doing nobody a favor. We've got to make sure school children get the meals they deserve, improve school meals. And indeed, you're correct with the housing problem. childcare is the second highest cost.
Of course.
It's a lot of money,
Yeah.
and we're living, as I said, in a cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
I will make sure more childcare centers are open because education is key, and that mother's happiness is key.
The structure of everything can easily be done, as you're saying.
Yes.
In words.
Yes.
But when it comes to deeds and when it sounds correct, because now most people watching us would say, okay, he's promised that, he's promised school dinners, he's promised or school meals, he's promised after daycare, he's promised this, he's promised this. But can he promise of where the money is going to come from?
100%.
Yeah.
Firstly, let's talk of integrity and trust.
We keep going back to this.
No,
because
I'll come back to that.
Everything is determined.
I'll come back to that.
Are you going to increase taxes?
Not at all. Not at all. Let's come to basics.
Yeah.
Integrity and trust.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The current mayor is not telling the truth to the public. There has been money which has been underutilized, unutilized. Right?
Unutilized.
Yes. And the Tory candidate, well, we know of the purse she dropped in a tube and said somebody's nicked it. But guess what? She dropped it.
Okay.
And they keep telling falsehood. In fact, that is where the politicians need to make sure they don't misinform, don't disinform. So when they don't have integrity and trust, this is where it comes in. I've told you before, there is a sufficient budget there which should be prioritized. My priority will be the children, the mothers, security and safety, and transportation. Making sure the communities are happy. And more importantly, none of these candidates have ever dealt with the numbers we are talking about. This is a mind-boggling figure. Do they even know what digits they are talking about? I've run much larger budgets. I will create funds. I will issue a bond. Do they know how funds are created, how bonds are issued? In other words, we have a certain sum of money. We deploy it wisely. All of us have budgets. Yes, there will be a limitation. We bring in money from outside so that the councils become profitable. You talked about raising council rates. In fact, I'm talking of bringing down council, because a mayor gets a certain percept, which he gets from the council. I'm going to reduce that percept with a view of bringing down council taxes, bringing down business rates, bringing down certain things means people have more in their pockets. The idea is not to expend money at pet projects of the mayor, not to go out on explorations and expeditions to, espouse policies like ULEZ and others without proper research. When you stop all this, focus on the people, good things happen. Believe me. And that is what I'm looking to do. I challenge them to tell me, do they all know about this budget? Have all these, including the independent candidates in the fray, have they ever dealt with this sort of a budget? I'm the only person. I've been a chairman of a bank. I've been CEO of India's largest asset management company. I sit on the board of the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry for Asian business. I'm the chairman of one of the largest startup foundations in the world, so I make sure the SMEs and the startups prosper. I run a awards program which is not for profit, which has helped nurture startups and the next gen in 44 countries. And as I said, when it comes to policing, I'm a strategic advisor to the Global Cyber Alliance. Now, cybercrime is not done in isolation. It's a holistic. So I understand policing and security, amongst other things. None of these people can tackle these issues. There's no time for excuses here. My training allows me to hit the ground running. And I've got a shadow cabinet that is waiting to get started on day one.
Now, there's Susan Hall had talked about paper mile. And the council tax, of course, lowering council tax, and of course, knife crime. And these are issues that are affecting most of our communities, especially the black community and the Asian community. Security is a major issue. Things have been talked about, putting more policemen on the beat, putting more cameras out there, making families training. You know, a lot is being suggested and put down there. This time around, I don't want to go to the issue of money, looking at the money, but rather to look more at the fact that these issues are suggested and they are there. But the thing is you're going to get an extra 1,500 policemen. Then again, we look at the 1,500 policemen who are going to come. They will also need houses where you are going to put them. They will also, employment is going, you are providing employment, but again, it comes back to money. The structure is the budget that they have, because this is what Sadiq Khan has been saying, that the money that I have, and the money that is given to me, and I look at the boroughs, I've done the best I could in bringing in schemes which are bringing in money, and you've suggested certain schemes. But whether you've done the research that what can work in Malaysia might not be able to work in the UK, because your past experience has taken you obviously overseas and to so many other places.
20 years in the UK, and where has paper mile come from? I beg to differ with Ms. Susan Hall. That's not declared by Mr. Khan yet. So again, falsehood, misinforming the public, putting fear.
He's talking about it. He hasn't actually denied saying he's going to do it.
Yes, so there we go. And coming to Mr. Khan, 1,500 policemen. Where has he got that number from? You know, it's not like pulling something out of the back. Look, I'm going to make sure whatever it takes. I'm not talking of 1,500 policemen. It might take 2,500 or more. It does not matter to me what amount of money is expended on security. Security is paramount. One life lost, one too many. I'm going to make sure we bring in the money. And it's not about making excuses, because 1,000 murders during his tenure, well, you can't have even one murder normally, but yes. Just imagine a teenager losing his life. 21 teenagers have lost their lives last year. I mean, that's too much. They were brothers of somebody. They must have been sisters. And that's not acceptable at all. 1,500, where is this number? I'm going to say whatever number of policemen it takes. You've got to have them there, and that's not going to stop crime totally. You've got to look at it in a holistic basis. So not this patchwork sort of thinking that these politicians have. Forget the other independents who don't even have the wherewithal to think that far.
In the next 2 to 3 years, the City of London will increase with an extra 2 to 3 million people. And this is a focus which is there, which will require extra hospitals, extra housing, and extra and so on to manage the extra 2 million people, because the budgets that are coming up, again, it comes back to money that will probably be raised again by London itself.
Most certainly. Most certainly.
Raised by now, what kind of plans have you got in terms of saying, okay, if we are going to get an extra 2 million people in, we need to make sure that we have first and foremost an economy within the London area, which brings in more money. And if the issues that you have mentioned are to work, we will require, is it borrowing money from the World Bank? Is it going somewhere as a banker? You can think in terms of, because even if you're going to start a project, it will probably want to start running and giving you any profits until another year or two. And yet the population has already gone up.
Well, I want you to look at this cuff here carefully. I wear a workman's cuff. I'm the only one who can roll up my sleeves right now. These guys haven't rolled up their sleeves. You can see what I'm talking about. Firstly, on a serious note, a lot of this is provided by the government, and you're very correct that the social service is not the way it should be today. Hospitals are stretched. If you go to an A&E today,
everywhere is stretched.
Indeed.
And when the population gets up, it will be overstretched. Right now, it's scrolling. It hasn't reached the maximum point of scrolling.
No, it's stretched. It is stretched. Services are stretched. But that's what I'm coming on. The planning aspects of things. A lot of this is taken care of the central government. Don't forget, London contributes to over 22+% to the national GDP.
I know.
If London gets a cold, I promise you, the UK will get fever.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure.
I know.
So I'm going to make sure. Look, you got to look at things on a holistic basis.
Yeah.
Populations are increasing, right? But when you have opportunities for more opportunities for education, more flexible jobs being offered, when you make sure that the employers do the right thing for the people, and strikes become history. I've talked of compensation for policemen, but also compensation in the transportation sector, because we got strikes there. When people work together happily, economies prosper. Security and safety. If you have a lady looking over her shoulder, then guess what? She can't be happy.
Okay.
So people need to focus on things. When you got congestion, 156 hours are wasted. It becomes the slowest city in the world. That amount of time expended into working. Economies prosper. And I've told you, I have worked all over the world. I will champion London. London is missing a champion. None of these people have championed London. That's why I work. I was hinting at this. I'll roll up my sleeves, bring in money from outside, bring in the talent. You'll be surprised. There used to be over 24 global headquarters of Fortune 500 companies in London. Now we've fallen off a cliff to only about 4 or 5.
But
Why is that?
They might say that was because of the being out of European Union. We could have.
That was one great reason. We haven't taken advantage of that. Well, that's possibly we're not taking advantage of our neighbors, biggest trading partners. That's a mistake. There are also diaspora from those countries living here. I want to build a living bridge. Are they able to do that? They haven't done that. They haven't even thought of that. That's the first part. So let me try and finish that. So when you roll up your sleeves, you bring in investments, you make sure the startup and the scale up becomes more robust here. You have more homegrown funds. You make sure the SMEs, which contribute to about 75% of the economy here, prosper, because as I said, I run global startup foundations like that. That is when people will find that the growth will be there, the GDP growth will be there. That's important here. And don't forget, it's a top financial center in the world. It moves many markets. I understand as a banker, do my worthy competitors in the fray for becoming the next mayor, do they understand it? Zero. They don't. So that's where they're only talking about given to them by the government, making excuses, even when they should have not. If they utilize this money fondly, believe me, this situation would not have arrived.
There is something called artificial intelligence, which has come in. And because it has come in, there is a lot at stake. And part of what is at stake is the loss of jobs. And this is what is worrying London Transport. Because sooner rather than later, they're going to have trains which they're driverless, just like the Canary Wharf trains. They're bringing in driverless trains. They are bringing in lots and lots, even cars that are going to be are not driven by lorries that are not driven by human beings. This will create a loss of jobs soon on the stock exchange as well. Somebody may sit in his place at home and he's dealing with and all the maybe 20, 40 people at the stock exchange will be unemployed as the years go by. Is there a way in which the mayor of London or anybody in a public office would sit and say, hang on a minute, we like this, the robots are good, but somewhere along the way I think we prefer to do this, and if they have seen that it's cheaper, it's going to be cheaper for them to do that. I mean, British Transport is already thinking of that. Japan has already started on the project. How are you going to cope with that? Because then there will be a huge unemployment.
It's a good question, but let me tell you. Change is a constant, and artificial intelligence is here to stay.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
And it helps in understanding that I want to make London the most digitally connected city in the world. Right? What does that mean? I'll also make sure it helps build in innovation, and technological advancement comes with that. When you bring in all this, you will find that people are actually not going to lose jobs. You make sure you redeploy people. Some places, yes, there may be some job losses.
Okay.
You build in training aspects to it, right? That's what I said. I don't want to have those 2.2 million people where the current mayor has lost all his moral, he should have been morally responsible for those people, those 33% children. I'm going to make sure I take them along. I have a leveling up agenda. That leveling up agenda means that even those people who may get displaced or lose some jobs because of artificial intelligence coming in, does not impact them, because that has to come in to make sure London remains technologically advanced, because this also helps in making it the greenest city in the world, because you've got to have recycling programs, understanding how waste can be tackled, and things like that. So you don't set aside technology, which is coming in, but you find ways of making sure that human beings understand that technology and we keep moving with it, isn't it? And that's what I'm looking for. And so let's bring in that technology, but at the same time, nobody should be out of job. There are a lot of adults who can be educated into certain things. We're all learning new skills today. And that's about what I'm talking about.
Okay. Now, another thing which is really affecting London, it's affecting the United Kingdom as a whole, and it's also affecting certain parts of Europe, is the skilled labor going abroad. Dubai, for example, has a huge skilled manpower from the UK, Abu Dhabi, and all these other small Arab countries, and now even United States has increased pay to some of the top people, not just originally in the government, but in other private sector in the UK. All that is attributed to the situation within where salaries are not good enough. Somebody is very good at his job. You may want, as a mayor, to employ someone who has a very, who are highly qualified and has the past experience. But you don't have the money, enough money. Or the government says, this is the price tag we put on a person with this sort of experience and the qualification. How are you going to maneuver that? Because banks are facing that. All the top cooperative people, and I'm sure even if it were you, if you are being offered a very good job with a certain bank in India, like you were, and in India or in Germany or somewhere, you jump up and say, hang on a minute, how much are they giving me? $500,000 a year? I'm out of here. You see the point? So the employment structure is there, but inexperienced people are moving in. And when you move in, you don't have the quality of labor, the quality of work that is going to be done qualitically, because you are losing people. Is there a formula that you bring there so that you could bring their money in line with other major cities like New York, for example, or Dubai? Because this issue I'm talking about was faced by not just Sadiq Khan, but by Boris Johnson as well, when a number of so many skilled people left.
What has Sadiq Khan done before this job? And what did Boris do before this job? You're talking to somebody who's been a global leader, right? They haven't run entities, they haven't dealt with people. If you heard me, I said I'm going to review compensation for policemen. Yes. I also said I'm going to review compensation in the transportation sector. Why? Because strikes need to become history.
Of course.
On one hand, you made it so difficult for people to move on the roads. On the other hand, somebody can't go on public transport either because there are strikes. Compensation is key. You've raised a very good point. You've got to hire the best talent, the right people for the right job.
The best talent need money.
Of course, of course. And despite that, the 21 billion is not small change. And I said I'm going to bring in money from outside. The employers are not only the public sector, the private sector needs the good challenge.
Of course.
They got to grow also. Now, you got to bring in people to get the right sort of jobs. You got to retrain people, otherwise you're correct.
Of course,
people are going to come in. Those global Fortune 500 companies that had their headquarters here, they got to come back here. Why will they come back here if it's not the secure place, it's not a safe place, where it doesn't move here? You see, Once I'll bring all that in, those companies will come back.
They'll come back because
got
of
deep pockets.
Lower taxes. That's why they went to China. So many
I'll
went to
bring them
China
back.
because,
Yes, you're right.
The taxes in China are low.
Yes.
American companies, British companies, they are disappearing there because it's cheaper to manufacture from there. So someone has to tell them that, listen, I've lowered this amount. Donald Trump tried. He faced a very difficult problem to do that. And part of maybe not being elected again was because of that. Major companies had to work, So somewhere along the way, I have a feeling the challenge is going to be bigger than what you think it's going to be.
No, it's not. Listen, London is like a global bank. All right?
Yeah.
It's where cultures thrive.
Yeah.
It's multicultural. Communities thrive, right? Now, why are you and I living in London? Tell me. Because it's a great city, and it can become the greatest city, right? That's what we're working on. So people want to come and work here. When those Fortune 500 companies come back here, there'll be employment. I'm talking about a holistic solution here. When the council taxes come down, people have more money in their pockets, right? When people have more money in their pockets, they can spend that money. The economy also moves along with these things. So what am I trying to say here? No matter what technology comes in, no matter what problems come in, experts look at this. I don't pretend to be an expert in it. All I can say is, I have run large companies. I'm a clear thinking man, thinking of the people. My success hasn't been by coincidence. It's been continuous only because I build good teams. I think of people. I think of solutions. Yes, there are problems, but there are alternatives to solve those problems. That's what I'm looking at. So we'll get people paid correctly, because if you don't pay them correctly, obviously
of course
you
they'll
don't get
go
the
away.
right
They'll go away.
They'll go
now,
away.
is there a timeline? For example, where you could say in my first year in office, this is what I'm going to do. So in my second year in office, this is what I'm going to do. Because Ken Livingstone did that, and people were laughing at the beginning at him, but he did. He dealt with the, I remember, the bin people, people who were, there were strikes as well. And London at one point were very filthy because the bin men went on strike as well, and we're having a lot of that. He dealt with that, and I think he dealt with something else as well. He dealt with a number of things, but these things, he kept them in a timeline. I'm going to do this year. I'm going to do this next year. I'm going to make sure that, because he was climbing ladders as we was going along, which again brought him on collusion course with the Labour Party, obviously. But that's another story. But in your particular case, any timeline, say for example, corporation companies, this is what I'm going to do. First year in office, this is what I have in my plans. It's what I'm going to do. Then my second year in office, this is what I'm going to do. So that you have a time, because you're not going to tackle all the problems at the same time, obviously.
Let me answer that firstly for you. You're talking to somebody who was operations manager international for HSBC for 15 countries.
Wow.
That's a lot of money I dealt with. Don't forget, banks move the wheels of an economy. Right? So firstly, I've dealt with operating plans fitting into a strategy. To answer your question,
known you then, I would have come to a big loan.
Let me answer this. Let me answer this correctly for you. I'm not looking at Mr. Livingston. I'm not looking at any of the other mayors. I can tell you, my priorities are my goals that I've set down. Firstly, to make sure everybody living in whichever borough, all communities need to thrive. Those priorities on security, transportation, communities, champion in London will all be done starting from day one. It's not that I'm going to say I'm going to deal with transportation today and next year I'm going to deal with security. All those priorities will start from day one. My training, I was selected from 25,000 people by HSBC. They have a special cadre of people which constitutes of only 0.1% of HSBC's workforce. The only bank in the world that has such a cadre. It trains me. My training allows me to hit the ground running. I can be parachuted into a problem, find solutions. And that's what I'm not only going to bring about change, it'll be transformational change. Right? So all those policies will be tackled starting from day one. Indeed, ULEZ,
Yeah.
totally, day one, has to go. All those other things I mentioned have to go, the 20 mile per hour limits and all that, because these things don't take too long. Change the sort of parameters on a camera. There are a lot of things I'm going to change on day one. But it is a holistic solution. You're right. Certain things will have more priority. I understand priorities. I understand alternative planning. But I can't talk for any other mayor. I can talk for myself. They'll all be tackled with the same element of priority. All those policies are important. Women are important for me. Making sure childcare is a cost. We got to make sure they feel happy. School meals, hang on. It's not a favor to the children. You got to give it to them. It's not something, and in fact, improve the quality of those meals. So when you're looking at a budget of that size, when you expend it wisely, there's enough money in there. I'll bring in money from outside so that everybody is moving along with that plane taking off, soaring high, because I want to make sure London brings back, I want to bring back that mojo, bring back the smiles on everybody's faces. Now everybody will then work hard for it, and indeed the neighbors we talked about, Europe, make sure the trade flows are there. So now, that's what we're going to do.
We're coming towards the end of the program, but there's something about the gender issue which we haven't tackled, the gender pay. It has been into existence for quite a long time. Where gender pay. In your experience with the bank, the banks where you've worked, HSP, the gender issue has always been a major in terms of payment, where women, when they go for to give birth, the pay remained, they are underpaid in a certain way, and it's that gender issue which has also been a major issue that the Mayor of London faced at some point. How are you going to tackle that in terms of payment?
Well, firstly, let's not talk of the current mayor. His experience as a politician does not allow him to deal with people. He doesn't know. There should be equality of pay. If I'm doing the job, I've had women being paid more than me. If they're more qualified, more talented, and I've dealt with individuals, certainly we should look at that.
But
there is inequality.
Certain companies, 100%. Not all of them.
It exists. It exists. It exists widely. The gap is being narrowed, and companies realize that. I realize that. So if I've got to hire people in City Hall, they're going to be paid equally and more. So that's not going to be a problem I'm going to face. But at the same time, yes, that does exist. It won't exist under my regime.
Right. One last word.
Please.
To the camera, to somebody listening, and somebody seeing you and saying, look, is this the right man to be the next Mayor of London? What a catchword, just 1 or 2 words in terms of what you.
I'm the most qualified of any candidate, including the independents. I stand for integrity and trust. The politicians and the political candidates currently in the fray for Mayor of London are and have failed us. They haven't delivered. Ms. Susan Hall is a GLA for 7 years. She talks of listening. When is she going to execute? And Mr. Khan is like an intern. 1 term, 2 terms, is seeking a 3rd term. Well, we can't allow him that again. And the other independents are not experienced enough. This is a large budget. Geopolitically, we need somebody who's strong, bold, and decisive. Please, I beg you, I beseech you, let's get the best candidate in. That's me. My name is Tarun Ghulati. I'm an independent candidate for mayor. Please come out and vote for me on 2nd of May. I need your vote so that we can work together and make London the greatest city in the world. We can do it together. I'm not going to do it alone. I'm for you. And that's why I'm suggesting and requesting, please give me your vote.
Mr. Tarun, I'm very glad.
It's always a pleasure to meet with you. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure, and I hope that I'll give you. You have my vote, and I hope you'll be the next Mayor of London.
Well,
thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming and telling us all about it. I hope we'll be together again next week for another edition of Africa Speaks. Thank you for being with us, and may God bless you all.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you. Thank you very much.
My bladder's bursting.